The envelope from Bramblestone Mortgage Services felt heavy in my hand, stamped with 3 bold red words that should have made my heart sing. Paid in full. But standing there in the driveway of the house, I had worked myself to the bone to keep. I felt only a cold, sinking dread. I had 22 years left on that loan. A miracle you never asked for isn't a gift. It is a trap. And someone had just sprung it. The envelope from Bramblestone Mortgage Services was heavy, thick with a quality of paper that usually signaled a lawsuit or a marketing pitch. I stood at the end of my driveway, the humid late afternoon air of Ashford Glen sticking my shirt to my back. It was a Tuesday in October. The hydrangeas were browning at the edges, and the neighborhood was quiet, the kind of silence you pay a premium for in this zip code. I ripped the flap open right there by the mailbox. I expected a notice about an escrow shortage or a change in insurance premiums. Instead, I pulled out a single, crisp sheet of letterhead, paid in full. The words were stamped in red ink, aggressive and final. Across the center of the page, I stared at it. I blinked, looked at the street, and looked back at the paper. Below the stamp, a polite form letter congratulated me on satisfying my loan obligation. It thanked me for my business. It wished me well in my future endeavors. My hands started to shake, not a tremble, but a violent vibration that rattled the paper. I had bought this house 4 years ago. It was a 3-bedroom craftsman with a porch that needed painting and a kitchen I had gutted and rebuilt with my own 2 hands. I had 26 years remaining on the mortgage. The principal balance was just under $300,000. I did not have $300,000. I did not have $10,000 in liquid cash, let alone enough to wipe out a mortgage. A mistake. It had to be a clerical error. Some data entry clerk at Bramblestone had transposed a digit, credited my account instead of some lucky lottery winners, and sent this letter by accident. I walked to the house, my legs moving with a strange, wooden stiffness. I unlocked the front door and dropped my purse on the entryway table. Ignoring the pile of mail I had yet to sort from the previous week, I went straight to my laptop in the living room. The screen glowed to life. I typed my password wrong twice before my fingers obeyed my brain. I logged into the Bramblestone portal. The dashboard loaded. Usually. A blue bar showed my progress. A depressing sliver of equity against a massive block of debt. The bar was gone. In its place was a green checkmark. Loan status, closed. Balance, $0.00. I sat back in my chair, the air leaving my lungs. It was impossible. It was the sort of thing you dream about. But staring at it in the harsh light of reality, it felt wrong. It felt like walking into your house and finding all the furniture rearranged by a stranger. I clicked on the transaction history tab. I scrolled past my regular monthly payments, $2,400, drafted on the 1st of every month, until I reached the top entry. Date, October 12th. Description, wire transfer payoff. Source, North Pine Settlement Group. Amount, $294,318.42. North Pine Settlement Group. I said the name out loud to the empty room. North Pine Settlement Group. I had never heard of them. I had never contacted them. I had not refinanced. I had not won a settlement. I searched the name on a new tab. The results were vague. A generic landing page with stock photos of handshakes and glass buildings. No address listed on the main page. Just a contact form and a slogan, facilitating your future. I grabbed my phone and dialed the customer service number on the back of the Bramblestone letter. Please hold while we connect you, the automated voice chirped. The hold music was a loop of soft jazz that usually annoyed me, but today it sounded sinister. I paced the length of my living room, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Finally, a human voice, Bramblestone Mortgage. This is Kevin. How can I help you? Hi, Kevin. My name is Violet Kelly. I'm calling because I received a letter saying my mortgage is paid off. That is great news. Ms. Kelly, Kevin said, his voice bright and practiced. Congratulations are in order. No, you don't understand, I said, gripping the phone. I didn't pay it off. I didn't authorize a payoff. This is a mistake. I have 26 years left on this loan. There was a pause on the line. The sound of typing. I see the account here, Kevin said, his tone cooling slightly. It shows a full wire payoff received 3 days ago. The funds have cleared. The lien release is being processed with your county recorder. But who paid it? I asked. The website says North Pine Settlement Group. Who are they? I cannot speak to the source of the funds, ma'am, only that they were received and applied according to the payoff instructions we received. Instructions you received from whom? I demanded. From me? Because I didn't send them. We received a standard authorization package, Kevin said. He sounded guarded now, like he was reading from a script designed to deflect liability. I want to see it. I said, send me the authorization. Send me the recording of the request. The account is closed. Ms. Kelly, he said, we cannot reopen a closed loan. We will be mailing a final package to the address on file. It contains all relevant documentation. I am telling you this is fraud, I shouted, my voice cracking. I did not pay this house off. You took money from a stranger and applied it to my house. If you believe there has been an error, you can submit a written inquiry to our disputes department, Kevin said, but as of now, Bramblestone has no financial interest in this property. Have a wonderful day. The line clicked dead. I stared at the phone. He had hung up on me. A major financial institution had just accepted a $250,000 wire transfer from a ghost and then hung up on the customer. I needed air. The house suddenly felt small, the walls leaning in. I walked out the front door and stood on the porch, hugging my arms around myself. Violet! I jumped. Mrs. Gable, my next-door neighbor, was wrestling a garden hose across her lawn. She was a woman in her 60s who spent most of her day monitoring the street from her bay window. Hi, Mrs. Gable, I said, trying to force a smile. Everything okay? She asked, pausing her war with the hose. You look like you saw a ghost. Just some weird mail, I said. Oh. Speaking of mail, she said, walking over to the hedge that separated our yards. A courier was here earlier, around 1 p.m. A courier? I asked. Yeah. Guy in a windbreaker. Unmarked car. He was banging on your door for a good while. Asked me if Kelly was home. What did you tell him? Told him you work for a living. Mrs. Gable said. He didn't leave a package, though. Did he say who he was with? No, she said, but he did something odd. After I told him you weren't home, he went back to his car, got a camera, and took a bunch of pictures of your front door, specifically the mailbox, and the house number. My stomach turned over. Pictures of the house number. That is weird, I said, keeping my voice level. Thanks for telling me. I went back inside and locked the door. I threw the deadbolt. I checked the back door. Locked. I pulled up the app for my doorbell camera on my phone. I scrolled back to 1 p.m. There he was. A man in a gray windbreaker and a baseball cap pulled low. He rang the doorbell. He waited. He rang it again. He knocked. Hard. Then he walked down the driveway, turned, and raised a camera. I zoomed in on the video. He wasn't just taking a picture of the house. He was framing the shot to include the brass numbers on the pillar and the mailbox lid. He was documenting that the property existed. Why? If Bramblestone wouldn't give me answers. I had to find them myself. I went back to my laptop. I worked as a project manager for a commercial logistics firm. My job was details, timelines, and paper trails. I knew how systems worked. I navigated to the Ashford-Glenn County Recorder's online portal. It was a clunky government website that hadn't been updated since 2010. But it was public record. I searched my name. Kelly. Violet A. The search wheel spun. 2 new documents appeared at the top of the list. Recorded yesterday. Document type. Lien release. Document type. Limited power of attorney. I clicked the lien release first. It was standard. Bramblestone releasing their claim on the property. Then I clicked the power of attorney. The PDF opened. It was 3 pages long. The legal jargon was dense, granting limited powers regarding real estate transactions to an entity called the Kestrel Ridge Family Trust. I scrolled to the bottom of the second page. There was a signature line, Violet A. Kelly, and there was my signature. I touched the screen. It looked like my signature. It had the loops of the V. It had the sharp, jagged K. It even had the little upward flick on the tail of the T that I had adopted in high school and never dropped. But it was wrong. I grabbed a pen and a notepad from my desk. I signed my name. I did it again. I compared my fresh ink to the pixels on the screen. The signature on the screen was too perfect. When I write fast. My pen pressure varies. The K usually trails off a bit. The signature on the document was uniform. The lines were heavy, consistent. Someone had practiced this. Someone had sat down with a copy of my handwriting and traced it until they could muscle memory the motion. I looked at the date next to the signature. September 14th. September 14th. I opened my work calendar. September 14th. I was in a conference room in Denver, running a logistics seminar for a client. I was 2,000 miles away from Ashford Glen. I was nowhere near a notary. I looked at the notary stamp on the document. Beverly J. Miller. Commission expires in 2 years. I didn't know a Beverly J. Miller. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. This wasn't a bank error. This was a crime, a deliberate, executed crime. They had forged my name to grant power of attorney to a trust I didn't know, to pay off a mortgage I wanted to keep. Why pay off my mortgage? Why give me $300,000? Unless the payoff was just the first step, I needed to tell someone. I grabbed my phone. My first instinct was to call the police, but I felt crazy. Officer. Someone paid off my debt. Arrest them. It sounded insane. I called my mother. Marlene lived 20 minutes away in a condo I had helped her find after Dad died. We talked every couple of days. She was the only family I had left in the state. Hello? Her voice was tinny, like she was on speakerphone. Mom, it's me. I said, Oh, hi, Violet. She sounded distracted. Sounds of dishes clattering in the background. Mom, something really weird is happening. I said, I need to ask you something. I'm kind of in the middle of dinner prep. Honey, can it wait? No. I said, I got a letter today. Someone paid off my mortgage. That's nice, isn't it? She didn't sound surprised. She didn't sound confused. She sounded careful. No. Mom, it's not nice. It's fraud. Someone forged my signature on a power of attorney document. Oh, Violet, she sighed. You always go straight to the worst-case scenario. Maybe it's just a program. A program? I asked. What kind of program pays off mortgages for free? I don't know, she said, her voice tightening. There are new things all the time. Government relief, equity things. Mom, I said, pressing the phone to my ear. The document was dated September 14th. That was the week I was in Denver. So, you were the only person watching the house. I said, I gave you the key to water the plants. Did anyone come by? Did you let anyone in? Silence. Mom, why are you interrogating me? She snapped. The sudden anger shocked me. Marlene was usually passive, avoiding conflict at all costs. I water your plants. I bring in your mail. And this is the thanks I get? Accusations? I'm not accusing you. I said, baffled. I'm asking if you saw anything. I didn't see anything. She said, You are being paranoid. You're always suspicious. Just take the win. Violet. God, you make everything so difficult. Mom, wait, I have to go. My show is starting. She hung up. I stared at the phone. My mother had never hung up on me in her life. We bickered, sure, but we didn't hang up. And she had never called me paranoid for worrying about legal documents. Just take the win. That phrase rattled around in my skull. It sounded like something she had heard, not something she would say. My laptop pinged. A new email notification slid into the corner of the screen. From Hallowbrook Home Solutions. Subject, Relocation Consultation for Violet Kelly. I opened it. Dear Violet, we understand that your property transfer is currently underway. Moving can be a stressful time. At Hallowbrook Home Solutions, we specialize in rapid transitions. As part of your settlement package, you are entitled to a complimentary relocation consultation. We can have a team at your residence as early as Friday to begin the inventory process. Sincerely, the Hallowbrook team. My property transfer. They weren't just paying off the mortgage, they were taking the house. The panic that had been simmering in my gut boiled over. I stood up and paced the kitchen. They expected me to move. They were talking about inventory. They thought I was leaving. I sat back down and forced myself to breathe. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. I was a project manager. I managed disasters for a living. When a shipment of steel beams went missing in the Atlantic, I didn't cry. I tracked it. I needed a paper trail. I started taking screenshots. I screenshotted the Bramblestone zero balance, the transaction history, the North Pine payoff line item. I downloaded the PDFs from the county recorder. I saved the email from Hallowbrook. I printed everything. Then I opened a new document and started a timeline. September 14th, date of forged signature. October 12, wire payoff received. October 15, paid in full letter received. October 15, courier photographs house. October 15, Hallowbrook email regarding relocation. I needed a witness. I texted Tessa. Tessa Rayburn was my best friend and the head of HR at my company. She was the most cynical person I knew, which made her the best person to have in a crisis. Me. Emergency. Someone forged my signature and paid off my house. Now I think they're trying to evict me. Tessa. Call me right now. I called her. Violet, start from the beginning, she said, her voice switching instantly to work mode. I told her everything. The letter, the portal, the notary, the call with my mom. Okay, Tessa said. Listen to me. Lock your credit, right now. Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, freezing everything. If they have your signature, they might have your social security number. I hadn't even thought of that. Do it now, she said, then check for new accounts. If they opened a credit card or a line of credit in your name to fund this, paying off a mortgage takes big money. They didn't just find $300,000 under a mattress. I'm doing it, I said, typing furiously on my keyboard. And Violet? Tessa said. Yeah? Do not talk to your mother again until you have more facts. She's my mom. Tessa. She acted weird. Violet, you said it yourself. If she let someone in, or if she signed something she shouldn't have. She might be scared to tell you, or worse. I froze the credit reports. I set up alerts. I checked for inquiries. There was nothing yet. No new credit cards, no loans, just the mortgage payoff. It was midnight by the time I finished. I turned off the lights in the living room. But the darkness felt hostile. Every creak of the house settling sounded like a footstep. I checked the locks again. I checked the windows. I went upstairs to my bedroom, but I didn't change out of my clothes. I lay on top of the duvet, staring at the ceiling fan blade as it spun in slow, rhythmic circles. How did they get the signature? The question kept looping in my brain. The upward flick on the T. It was so specific. It wasn't just a generic forgery. It was a simulation of my hand. To practice that well, you need source material. You need samples. I closed my eyes and replayed the week of September 14th. I had been stressed about the Denver trip. I was rushing to pack. Marlene had come over the night before I left to pick up the spare key. Don't worry about the plants. Vi, go make your money. I'll hold down the fort. She had stood in the kitchen. She had been drinking tea. I sat up in bed. The memory hit me with the force of a physical blow. The kitchen counter. The night before I left, I had been organizing my filing cabinet. I had pulled out a stack of old paperwork to shred or file. I had left a manila folder on the island while I packed my suitcase. It was the folder labeled Purchase, 124 Oak Street. It contained my original closing disclosure, my deed, my promissory note, and page after page of my signature. Signed in blue ink, dated 4 years ago. I had left that folder on the counter. I had told Marlene, "Don't let me forget to file this when I get back," when I returned from Denver. The folder was on the desk in the office. I assumed I had moved it before I left, but I hadn't moved it. Marlene had been in the house alone for 5 days with a master class in my handwriting sitting on the kitchen island. I swung my legs out of bed and ran downstairs. I tore into the home office. I ripped open the filing cabinet. I found the folder. I opened it. The papers were there. But as I flipped through them, I noticed something. On the signature page of the original deed, there was a faint, colorless indentation next to my name. I held the paper up to the desk lamp. It was a tracing mark. Someone had laid another piece of paper on top of this one and pressed down hard, following the lines of my name to get the muscle memory right. I dropped the paper. It fluttered to the floor. My mother hadn't just watered the plants. She had let the wolves in. Or maybe, God help me, she had opened the door and invited them to dinner. The regional office of Bramblestone Mortgage Services was located in Larkhaven City, an hour drive south of Ashford Glen. It was a glass and steel monolith rising out of a sea of asphalt, the kind of building designed to make you feel small before you even walk through the revolving doors. I had taken a personal day from work, feigning a migraine, which wasn't entirely a lie. The pressure behind my eyes had been throbbing since I found the tracing mark on my deed. I walked up to the reception desk. The lobby smelled of floor wax and refrigerated air. I need to speak to someone about a loan payoff, I told the receptionist, a young woman who looked like she would rather be anywhere else. Do you have an appointment? She asked without looking up. No, I said, but I have a letter saying my mortgage was paid off without my consent, and I am not leaving until I speak to a loan officer. She paused, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and saw the dark circles under my eyes and the tremor in my hands that I was trying to hide by gripping the edge of her desk. Have a seat, she said softly. I will see who is available. I waited for 45 minutes. Finally, a man in a blue button-down shirt came out. He introduced himself as Mr. Henderson, a junior account manager. He led me to a small cubicle that offered zero privacy. Miss Kelly, he said, sitting down and clasping his hands. I understand you have concerns about the closure of your account. I don't have concerns. I said, I have a crime to report. My mortgage was paid off by a third party I do not know, using a power of attorney document I did not sign. I want the transaction reversed. I want my loan reinstated. Mr. Henderson sighed. A practiced exhale of corporate fatigue. We cannot reverse a wire payoff once the funds have cleared and the lien release has been recorded. He said, the account is closed. Legally, Bramblestone has been made whole. We have no standing to reopen the debt. But it wasn't me, I insisted, keeping my voice low so the people in the lobby wouldn't stare. If someone stole my car and paid off the loan, you wouldn't just say, well, thanks for the cash. Actually, that is exactly what the auto lender would do. He said, look, Ms. Kelly, if you have a dispute regarding the source of the funds or the authorization, that is a civil matter between you and the party who paid it. We are just the receiver. I felt the heat rising in my face. I want to see the payoff packet. I said, the person on the phone said there was an authorization package. I want a copy. Right now. He hesitated. I am the account holder. I said, if that packet contains my signature, I have a right to see it. I will see what I can do. He said. He disappeared for another 20 minutes. When he returned, he handed me a thin, staple-bound stack of papers. This is what I can release to you, he said. I flipped through it. It was sanitized. Redacted blocks of black ink covered routing numbers and email addresses. But there was the power of attorney again, and there was a payoff demand request signed with that same, practiced version of my signature. I looked at the notary stamp on the last page. Beverly J. Miller. Commission number 77429. I stood up. Thank you, I said, my voice brittle, as I turned to leave. Mr. Henderson stood up too. He walked me to the edge of the cubicle farm, away from the other employees. Miss Kelly, he said quietly. I stopped. I see a lot of payoffs, he said. Refinances, inheritances, sales, usually. When someone pays off a house, they sign the request themselves. It is very rare to see a payoff processed entirely through a limited power of attorney unless the borrower is incapacitated or out of the country. I stared at him. I was out of the country. I whispered. He nodded once, barely a movement. "Check the notary," he murmured. Then he turned and walked back to his desk. I walked out to my car, my heart racing. Check the notary. I sat in the driver's seat and pulled out my phone. I navigated to the Secretary of State's website, to the notary public search tool. I typed in Beverly J. Miller, no results found. I typed in the commission number, 77429, no results found. The notary was a ghost. The stamp was a fake. You can buy a custom rubber stamp online for $20 if you don't care about the law. This was not a civil dispute. This was forgery. I started the car and drove straight to the Ashford Glen Community Bank. This was where my checking account lived, where my automatic mortgage payments had been drafted from for 4 years. I sat across from a personal banker named Sarah, a woman I had known since high school. "Violet, you look wrecked," Sarah said, pulling up my profile. "What is going on? I need to know if any large transfers were attempted from my accounts in the last 2 weeks." I said, "Anything that might have been blocked or flagged." She tapped on her keyboard. "Nothing. Vi," she said, "just your normal debit card stuff. Groceries, gas, utilities. Your balance is, well, it is what it is. $3,000 in savings, $1,200 in checking, so no $300,000 wire transfers?" I asked. She laughed, thinking I was joking. Then she saw my face. "No," she said seriously. "Absolutely not. Why? Someone paid off my house. Sarah. And it wasn't me." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "If the money didn't come from me," I said, half to myself, "then someone else put up nearly $300,000 to clear my title. Why? Who invests that kind of cash in a stranger's house? Unless they think it is their house now." I left the bank and sat in my car again. I felt exposed. Every time I looked at a piece of paper, the ground shifted under my feet. I needed to see the damage. I pulled up the credit monitoring app on my phone. Tessa had told me to lock everything, and I had, but I needed to see the history. I scrolled through the inquiries. There it was, October 10th. Inquiry, Aldervale Capital. I tapped on it. It was a hard inquiry, the kind lenders make when you apply for a loan, and right below it, a notification I had missed in the chaos. October 11th. New account application. Home equity. Line of credit. Status. Withdrawn. Withdrawn. They had tried to open a line of credit against my house before the payoff? No, that didn't make sense. You can't take equity out if the mortgage is still there unless they were testing the waters, or maybe they realized they couldn't get the loan approved with the existing mortgage in the way. So they paid off the first mortgage to clear the deck. They cleaned the title so they could borrow against it freely. They weren't buying my house. They were prepping it to be a piggy bank. I drove to the police station. It was a brick building next to the library. I walked in with my folder of evidence, the screenshots, the timeline, the fake notary search results. I asked to file a report for identity theft and real estate fraud. The officer at the front desk, a heavy-set man named Officer Reynolds, handed me a clipboard with a form. "Fill this out," he said. I filled it out. I detailed everything. When I brought it back, he skimmed it. "So, let me get this straight," he said, looking over his reading glasses. "You are complaining that someone paid off your debt?" "It is not a gift," I said. "It is fraud. They forged my signature. Ma'am, usually when people come in here for fraud, it is because someone stole money from them, not gave it to them. They are going to take the house," I said, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "They paid it off so they could transfer the title or take out loans against it. Do you have proof of a title transfer?" he asked. "No, not yet. But do you have proof of a new loan in your name?" "There was an application, but it was withdrawn." "Okay, so no financial loss has occurred yet," he said, setting the clipboard down. "This sounds like a civil dispute. Ms. Kelly, if you have a problem with a contract or a power of attorney, you need a lawyer, not a police officer. We can't arrest someone for paying your bills. I slammed the folder onto the counter. The sound echoed in the small lobby. Look at page 4, I said. He blinked, surprised by my sudden aggression. He opened the folder. That is a notary stamp for Beverly J. Miller, I said, pointing at the image. I checked the state registry. She does not exist. That is a counterfeit government seal. That is a felony. He looked at the document. He looked at the screenshot of the No Results Found page from the Secretary of State. He shifted his weight. The dismissal in his eyes faded, replaced by a flicker of annoyance, but also interest. Counterfeit seal. Huh? He grunted. Yes, I said. And forgery? And identity theft? He sighed and picked up a pen. All right, he said. I will file it under fraud. But I'm telling you, without a suspect, this is going to sit in the queue. We don't have a cybercrimes unit here. It just goes to detectives. File it. I said, give me the case number. I walked out with a small slip of paper. Case number 202-3994. It felt like a shield made of tissue paper, but it was something. I needed to talk to the one person who could explain how the wolves got into the hen house. I drove to my mother's condo. Marlene lived in a development called Shady Creek. It was nice, quiet, full of retirees who planted petunias and watched the Weather Channel. I parked in her driveway. Her car was there. A sensible beige sedan I had helped her negotiate for. I let myself in with my key. Mom? I called out. She was in the kitchen, wiping down the counters. When she saw me, she stiffened. Violet, she said, I didn't know you were coming over. We need to talk. Mom, I told you on the phone. I don't know anything about your mortgage, she said, turning her back to me to rinse a sponge. You are upsetting yourself over nothing. I walked over to the island. I placed the folder on the counter. I went to the bank today. I said, and the police station. Her shoulders hiked up toward her ears. The police? She said. Why would you do that? Because someone forged my signature. I said, and they did it by tracing documents I left in my house, the house you were watching. She turned around. Her face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. I don't appreciate the accusation. Violet, I am your mother. I looked at her hands. She was wringing the sponge, twisting it tight. On her right thumb, near the nail bed, there was a smudge. It wasn't dirt. It was a distinct, bruise-colored stain. Indigo blue. I reached out and grabbed her wrist. Violet! She shrieked, trying to pull away. What is that? I asked, looking at the stain. Let go of me. That is ink. Mom, I said, that is the kind of ink you get from carbonless copy paper, the kind they use for triplicate forms. She yanked her hand back, cradling it against her chest. I was organizing some old receipts, she stammered. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice shaking. Please, for once in your life, just tell me the truth. You signed something. She looked at me, and I saw the crumble happen. It started in her eyes, a sudden welling of tears, and then her face collapsed. She sank onto one of the bar stools, covering her face with her hands. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She sobbed. He said it was just a restructuring. He? I asked. Who is he? Mr. Greer, she whispered. Silas Greer. Who is Silas Greer? He is a financial advisor, she said, sniffing. Beatrice from church introduced us. She said he helped her son save his business. He is a wealth coach. A wealth coach, I repeated, feeling a cold numbness spreading through my chest. He explained it all to me, she said, looking up, her eyes pleading. He said you were sitting on dead equity. That is what he called it. He said the banks trap you in debt to keep you poor. He had this program, the Equity Liberation Initiative. He said we could unlock the value of your house without you having to sell it. And you believed him? I asked. He was so nice. Violet, he listened to me. He asked about my bills. You know how hard it has been since your father died. The credit cards. My heart stopped. Mom, I said slowly, did you give him money? He said I needed to make a good faith investment to start the process. She said, but the return was going to be huge. He said he could wipe out my debt and yours. He just needed to process some paperwork to put the assets into a trust for protection. A trust. The Kestrel Ridge Family Trust. He told me it was a surprise. He said, "Violet works so hard. Let's do this for her. Let's surprise her with a paid-off house." "You forged my signature." I said, "He said it was okay." She cried. "He said since I was your mother and we were family, I could sign as an authorized representative. He gave me the papers. He said, 'Just sign here, and we can get started.'" "And the ID?" I asked. "The picture of the mailbox?" "He needed verification," she said, "to prove the property was real." I stared at her. My mother. She wasn't malicious. She was just weak. She was gullible and desperate, and she wanted to be the hero. She wanted to be the one who saved me, instead of the one I was always saving. And because of that, she had handed the keys to my life over to a predator. "Where is his office?" I asked. "He came here," she said, "or we met at Starbucks. He travels a lot. He has clients all over the country. Does he have a website? A card?" She fumbled in her purse and pulled out a sleek, heavy business card. Gold foil lettering on black stock. Everwell Prosperity Institute. Silas Greer. Senior Wealth Architect. I took the card. "I have to go." I said, "Violet." "Wait," Marlene called out. "Is it bad?" I looked at her. I looked at the ink on her thumb. "I don't know yet." "Mom," I said, "but I think you just sold my house to a stranger." I drove home in a daze. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. I typed in Everwell Prosperity Institute. The website was slick. Stock videos of families running on beaches, men in suits pointing at charts, golden sunsets. The text was a word salad of corporate buzzwords: legacy, leverage, unlocking potential, sovereign wealth management. I looked for a team page. There were no photos of people, just bios. Silas Greer's bio described him as a visionary in asset protection with 20 years of experience. I checked the footer for an address: 1055 Commerce Drive, Suite 400, Larkhaven City. I copied the address into Google Maps. It was a strip mall. Suite 400 was a heavy shipping store, a mail drop. I searched for business licenses in the state database. Everwell Prosperity Institute, no results. I searched for Silas Greer in the FINRA broker check, the database for licensed financial advisors. No results. He wasn't an advisor. He was a ghost, just like the notary. I sat there as the sun went down, the house getting dark around me. I felt like I was watching a horror movie where the call comes from inside the house, only the house itself was the monster. The next morning, the mail arrived. I watched the mail carrier slide a bundle of envelopes into the box. I walked out to get it. There was a stiff white envelope, certified mail, return address, Kestrel Ridge Family Trust. My hands shook as I tore the perforated strip. I pulled out a letter. Notice of lease agreement and rent demand. Dear tenant, welcome to the Kestrel Ridge family. This letter serves as formal notice that as of October 12th, the property located at 124 Oak Street is held in trust by Kestrel Ridge Family Trust, per the terms of the beneficial interest assignment and leaseback agreement executed on your behalf. Your monthly rental obligation is $3,200. Please remit your first payment within 10 days of this notice. Failure to pay will result in immediate eviction proceedings. We look forward to a prosperous relationship. I read it twice. $3,200. My mortgage had been $2,400. They had bumped the price up by 30%. I understood it then. The whole mechanism of the trap snapped into focus. They find a vulnerable person, my mother. They promise a miracle. They get the documents signed to transfer the beneficial interest of the home into a trust. Shielding the title from immediate view, they pay off the mortgage using money from other victims, a Ponzi scheme of debt, so the bank steps aside. Then, they turn around and tell the homeowner, "You don't own this anymore. We do. You are a tenant. And if I didn't pay, they would evict me." They would use the forged documents to show a court that I had agreed to sell the house to the trust and lease it back. They would throw me out on the street and sell the house pure and simple, pocketing the entire value. They relied on the shame. They relied on me being too embarrassed to tell anyone that my mother had been scammed. They relied on the legal system being too slow to stop an eviction before it happened. I looked at my house, my porch, my garden. They wanted me to panic. They wanted me to pack up and leave so Hallowbrook Home Solutions could come in and inventory my life. I walked back inside. I pinned the eviction notice to the wall next to the paid in full letter. I wasn't going to pack. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for the lawyer Tessa had recommended. "My name is Violet Kelly," I said when the receptionist answered. "Someone is trying to steal my house, and I'm ready to fight." Dana Sloan operated out of a converted Victorian house on the edge of the historic district in Larkhaven City. The sign out front was modest: Sloan Associates, Real Estate Law. But the interior smelled of mahogany and expensive coffee. I sat in a leather chair that felt too big for me, watching Dana read through my file. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp, geometric glasses and hair cut into a severe bob that suggested she didn't have time for nonsense. She flipped the page of the Kestrel Ridge Family Trust document, her eyes scanning the lines of text with terrifying speed. She didn't hum or sigh. She just read, her face a mask of concentrated calculation. Finally, she set the folder down and took off her glasses. "This is aggressive," she said. Her voice was low and gravelly, the voice of someone who had seen every possible way a property deal could go wrong. "Is it legal?" I asked. "Can they actually kick me out?" Dana leaned forward, clasping her hands on the desk. "What we are looking at here is a mechanism called a title flip through a trust," she said. "It is a sophisticated way to muddy the waters of ownership. They don't just forge a deed and run, because that is too easy to track. Instead, they create a web." She pulled out a yellow legal pad and uncapped a pen. "Step 1, she said, drawing a square. "They pay off your existing lien. That makes the title look clean to the outside world. No bank is watching anymore because the bank got paid. Step 2, she continued, drawing a line to a second square. "They record a beneficial interest assignment. This document you showed me? It doesn't transfer the deed itself. The deed is still in your name at the county recorder's office." I felt a surge of relief. "So I still own the house?" Dana held up a hand. "Technical ownership and controlling interest are two different things in this game. Violet, this assignment document claims that while you hold the title, you have assigned all the rights of the property, the right to lease it, sell it, or leverage it, to the Kestrel Ridge Family Trust. It claims you did this voluntarily, likely in exchange for them paying off the mortgage. But I didn't," I protested. "I know," she said, "but the piece of paper says you did. And until a judge says that piece of paper is a lie, the county treats it as the truth. They are banking on the delay. They want you to get confused, to argue with the wrong people, while they move to step 3. What is step 3? Monetization," she said grimly. "They didn't spend $300,000 to help you. They spent it to clear the deck so they can load the boat with their own cargo. I hired her on the spot. I wrote a retainer check for $5,000, draining my savings account to the dregs. It felt like bleeding. But I didn't have a choice." Dana wasted no time. She ordered a full title search, an expedited abstract that would show every single recording on my property going back 50 years. While we waited for the abstractor, she drove me to the Ashford Glen County Recorder's office. I had been there before, staring at the public computer, but walking in with Dana Sloan was a different experience. She bypassed the front counter and walked straight to a back office marked Investigations. We met with a man named Mr. Halloway. He looked like a weary accountant, surrounded by stacks of files that reached halfway to the ceiling. Dana laid out the copies of the forged power of attorney and the fake notary stamp. Halloway looked at them, then pulled up the recording on his screen. "I see it," he said, rubbing his eyes. "Recorded September 15th. "How did this get through?" I asked, the frustration bubbling up in my throat. "The notary doesn't exist. The signature is a tracing. A child could see the pressure points are wrong." Halloway looked at me with sad, tired eyes. "Ms. Kelly," We record 500 documents a day in this county: mortgages, releases, deeds, liens. My clerks are not forensic handwriting analysts. Their job is to check for formatting. Are the margins correct? Is the font size readable? Is there a notary stamp? If the answer is yes, we record it. But it is fake, I said. If we stop to verify every notary seal with the Secretary of State, the entire real estate market would grind to a halt, he said. The system operates on good faith. It assumes that people are not committing felonies. It assumes too much, Dana said sharply. We are flagging this as disputed. I want a fraud alert on the parcel number immediately. I can flag it, Holloway said, but I cannot remove it. Only a court order can strike a document from the record once it is scanned. It is part of the chain now. Walking out of the recorder's office, I felt the weight of the bureaucracy. It was a machine built to process paper, not truth, as long as the paper was the right size and shape. The machine didn't care if it destroyed my life. We are going to find them, Dana said as we walked to her car. Where is the address for North Pine Settlement Group? I checked my notes. It was a suite in an office park on the north side of town. Let's go, she said. We drove to the address. It was a nondescript beige building surrounded by generic landscaping. We took the elevator to the third floor. Suite 305. The door was glass, with a list of 20 different company names stenciled in white vinyl. North Pine Settlement Group was not on the list. We walked in. It was a shared workspace rental. A receptionist sat behind a sleek white desk, answering calls on a headset. Can I help you? She asked, flashing a practiced smile. We are looking for North Pine Settlement Group, Dana said, presenting her business card. The receptionist typed something into her computer. I don't have a current tenant by that name, she said. They wired $300,000 from this address last week, Dana said. They listed this suite on a mortgage payoff. The receptionist's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went hard. We have hundreds of virtual tenants who use this address for mail forwarding. She said, if they are not on the active roster, their contract has likely expired. I need a forwarding address, I said, or a contact name, anything. I cannot disclose client information, she said smoothly. Privacy policy. Dana leaned over the desk. I am an attorney representing a victim of felony fraud. Dana said, if I have to subpoena your client list and drag you into a deposition to explain why you are shielding a criminal enterprise, I will do it, or you can check your records again. The receptionist hesitated. She looked at Dana, then at me. She typed again. They terminated their service 3 days ago, she said quietly. No forwarding address. They paid in cash, prepaid Visa cards. And the contact name? Dana pressed. John Smith. The receptionist said. We walked back to the car in silence. John Smith, cash cards. A virtual office that dissolved the moment the money moved. They were smoke. The next 2 days were a blur of anxiety. I went to work because I had to. I sat at my desk at the logistics firm, moving shipping containers across oceans on a screen, while my own home was being hijacked. On Thursday afternoon, the humiliation phase of the attack began. I was in the middle of a team meeting. We were discussing supply chain disruptions in the Pacific. My boss, Greg, was pointing at a projection screen. The door to the conference room opened. Our receptionist, typically cheerful, looked pale. Violet? She said. I'm sorry to interrupt. There is someone here to see you. Is it a client? Greg asked. Annoyed. No, she said. He says it is legal. My stomach dropped through the floor. I stood up, feeling the eyes of my 6 coworkers on me. I walked out to the lobby. A man in a cheap suit was standing there, holding a tablet and a thick envelope. Violet Kelly? He asked loudly. Yes, I whispered. Can we do this outside? You have been served, he said, thrusting the envelope at me. Summons and complaint. Case number 44920. He held up the tablet. Smile for the proof of service. He snapped a photo of me holding the papers before I could even react. Have a nice day, he said, and walked out. I stood in the lobby, clutching the packet. I looked up, through the glass wall of the conference room. I could see my team watching. They quickly looked away, but I saw the whispers starting. Violet is being sued. Violet is in trouble. I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. I sat on the toilet lid, shaking. I opened the packet. It wasn't an eviction notice. It was a lawsuit for breach of contract, an unjust enrichment, filed by the Kestrel Ridge Family Trust. It claimed I had agreed to lease the property and was now refusing to pay rent or vacate. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Tessa. Tessa, HR just got a call. Someone claiming to be a creditor asking for wage garnishment info. I shut it down. But Vi, this is getting loud. They were attacking my reputation. They knew that if they made me look like a deadbeat, I would be isolated. I would be too ashamed to ask for help. I would just want it to stop. I left work early. I couldn't face the stairs. When I got home, there was another package on my porch. FedEx. I brought it inside and threw it on the kitchen table. I didn't want to open it. I wanted to burn it. But I opened it. The letterhead was new. Aldervale Capital. Notice of default and intent to accelerate. Dear Ms. Kelly, we are writing concerning your short-term bridge loan. Account number 8920. Secured by the property at 124 Oak Street. Our records indicate that the first payment of $5,400 was due on October 15th and has not been received. You are now in default. Per the terms of the promissory note, we are accelerating the full balance of the loan, $150,000, if payment is not received within 10 days. We will proceed with foreclosure. I stared at the numbers. $150,000. I called Dana. My hands were shaking so hard, I dropped the phone twice before I could dial. Dana, I said, my voice sounding ragged. There is another one. Aldervale Capital. They say I owe them $150,000. Send me a picture, she said instantly. I snapped a photo and texted it to her. There was a long silence on the line while she reviewed it. Okay, she said. This confirms it. Confirms what? I cried. That I'm ruined? Stacked fraud, she said. Violet, listen to me. This is the mechanism. They paid off Bramblestone to remove the first mortgage. That left the title unencumbered. Then, they used the forged power of attorney to take out a new private loan, this bridge loan from Aldervale, against the house. But why? I asked. Why pay off $300,000 just to borrow $150,000? They are losing money. No, Dana said. They aren't losing anything. Bramblestone got paid with dirty money, probably from another victim. They cycle the funds. They pay off your house with victim A's money. Then they take a loan against your house and pocket the cash. Then they foreclose on you to get the house itself. It is a washing machine. They wash the stolen money through your real estate title. And now Aldervale wants to foreclose? Exactly, she said. Private lenders don't have the same waiting periods as banks. They can move fast. They created a default the second they signed the papers. I looked at the signature page of the Aldervale loan. There it was again. Violet A. Kelly. The same upward flick on the T. The same simulated pressure. But there was something else. I looked closely at the witness line on the loan document. Witness. Marlene Kelly. My breath hitched. Dana. I said, my mother witnessed this. What? Her signature is here. I said, as a witness. I hung up. I couldn't talk anymore. The room was spinning. My mother witnessed the loan. She didn't just sign the power of attorney. She was there when they took out the debt. I needed to see it. I needed to see how this happened. I went to my computer. I opened the doorbell camera archive again. I had looked at the courier. I had looked at the man taking photos. But I hadn't looked at the days before the payoff in detail. I scrolled back to September 14th, the day of the alleged signing, the day I was in Denver. I watched the timeline. 2:15 p.m. A car pulled into my driveway. It was a black sedan, sleek, expensive looking. The driver got out. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit. He didn't look like a thug. He looked like a banker. He looked trustworthy. He walked to the passenger side and opened the door. My mother stepped out. She was wearing her Sunday best, a floral dress and a cardigan. She looked nervous. She smoothed her hair. The man smiled at her. He touched her elbow gently, guiding her toward my front door. I watched them walk up the path. The man was carrying a thick leather briefcase. My mother pulled out her keychain, the one with the photo of my dad on it. She unlocked my front door. She held the door open for him. He walked into my house. I sat there, frozen, watching the video loop. My mother, letting a stranger into my sanctuary. She didn't look coerced. She looked hopeful. She looked like she was bringing a guest to a party. I grabbed my keys. I didn't text Tessa. I didn't call the police. This was between me and Marlene. I drove to Shady Creek like a maniac. I broke every speed limit. I parked on her lawn, not even bothering with the driveway. I banged on her door. "Mom! Open the door!" She opened it, looking terrified. She was wearing her bathrobe. "Violet? What is it?" I pushed past her into the living room. It smelled of lavender air freshener and that underlying scent of old paper and anxiety that I had come to associate with her. I saw the video. "Mom," I said, turning to face her. She went white. "I saw you let him in," I said. "September 14th, you and Silas Greer. You went into my house." She backed away until she hit the sofa. She sank down onto it. "He said he needed to inspect the asset," she whispered. "Inspect the asset?" I screamed. "It is my home. Not an asset. It is my home. He said he needed to verify the equity," she said, her voice trembling. "He brought the papers. He said we could sign them there, in the kitchen. He said it would be more ceremonial." "Ceremonial?" I laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. He took out a loan. "Mom, $150,000. And you witnessed it." "I didn't know it was a loan," she cried. "He told me it was the equity release. He said that money was going to be held in the trust to pay for your future." "What future?" I demanded. "The future where I'm homeless?" She started to cry, great heaving sobs that shook her small frame. "I just wanted to fix it," she wailed. "Fix what?" "Everything," she screamed back, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. "The debt. My debt." The room went silent. "Your debt?" I asked quietly. "I owe them. Violet," she choked out. "The credit cards. It wasn't just a few thousand. It is $40,000. And the medical bills from your father. I never paid them all. I kept taking out personal loans to pay the minimums. $40,000. And then Silas came," she said, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "Beatrice introduced us. He looked at my papers. He said, 'Marlene, this is slavery. You are a slave to the banks.' He said he could reset it." "Reset it how?" "He said if we combined our assets, if we used the equity in your house to create a sovereign trust, he could wash all the debt away, mine and yours. He promised me." "Violet, he looked me in the eye and promised that you would never have to pay a mortgage again." I stared at her. I saw the bruises of ink on her thumb again. "So you sold me out," I said, "to pay your credit cards." "No," she insisted. "He said it wouldn't hurt you. He said you would thank me." He said, "Violet is too scared to take risks. You have to be the matriarch. You have to make the executive decision for the family." Executive decision. The words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. They groomed her. The realization hit me harder than the fraud itself. They hadn't just forged a signature. That would have been simple. They had spent weeks, maybe months, working on her. They had found her pain points, her widowhood, her financial shame, her desire to be relevant and helpful. They had twisted her love for me into a weapon. They made her feel like a savvy investor instead of a victim. They gave her a secret mission: save Violet, be the matriarch, and in doing so, they turned her into their accomplice. "Mom," I said, my voice hollow, "did you get any money? Did he give you anything?" She looked down at her lap. He gave me $5,000 in cash," she whispered, "to pay off the immediate past due bills. He said it was an advance on the trust dividends. $5,000. She had traded my $300,000 home for $5,000 in cash and a lie. I looked at her, and I didn't see a villain. I saw a broken woman who had been dismantled by professionals. But that didn't stop the anger. It burned hot and fierce in my gut. "You have to tell the police." I said, "I can't." She whimpered. "He said if I told anyone, I would be liable. He said I signed the papers as a co-conspirator. He said if the deal falls apart, I go to jail. He is lying. Mom, he is scaring you to keep you quiet. He knows where I live. Violet. He knows everything about us." I walked over to her. I crouched down so I was eye level with her. "He is going to take my house. Mom, if you don't help me, I lose everything. Do you understand that?" She nodded, tears dripping off her chin. "Then you are going to get up," I said. "You are going to get dressed, and we are going to see my lawyer." "I can't," she sobbed. "You have to." I said, "Because if you don't, I am not your daughter anymore. I am just another victim." She looked at me, shocked by the coldness in my voice. She saw that I meant it. Slowly, painfully, she stood up. I drove her to Dana's office. The car ride was silent. Marlene stared out the window. Shrinking into herself, I stared at the road, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I had found the leak. The call was indeed coming from inside the house. But stopping it wasn't going to be as simple as hanging up. The ink was dry. The documents were recorded, and the enemy wasn't just a man named Silas Greer. It was a legal system that saw my mother's signature and called it valid, and a predator who knew exactly how to make a mother believe that betraying her daughter was an act of love. We walked into Dana's office. "This is Marlene." I said to Dana, "She is ready to talk." Dana looked at my mother. She didn't offer sympathy. She offered a notepad. "Sit down. Mrs. Kelly," Dana said, "start from the beginning, and do not leave out a single detail." Marlene sat. She took a breath, and she began to dismantle the lie she had built, one painful sentence at a time. Dana Sloan moved with the lethal precision of a surgeon cutting out a tumor. Within 24 hours of Marlene's confession, Dana had drafted a notice of pendency of action, a lis pendens, and filed it with the Ashford Glen County recorder. It was a giant red flag planted on my property's title, screaming to any potential lender or buyer that this house was the subject of active litigation. She didn't stop there. She fired off sworn affidavits of forgery and identity theft to Bramblestone, Aldervale Capital, and the Secretary of State's Fraud Division. The letters were aggressive, demanding immediate halts to any foreclosure proceedings and preservation of all evidence. "We are stopping the bleeding," Dana said as she stamped the final envelope. "Now we need to find the knife." She set up a meeting with Detective Rourke Bell in the county's Financial Crimes Unit. This wasn't the front desk officer who had dismissed me as a civil dispute. Bell was a specialist. I sat in his office, which was little more than a glass box filled with banker's boxes and a whiteboard covered in flowcharts. Bell was a man in his 40s with tired eyes and sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He didn't interrupt as Dana laid out the documents, the fake notary stamp, the tracing marks, the shell company payoff, and the predatory loan. He picked up the copy of the notary stamp, Beverly J. Miller. He pulled a magnifying glass from his drawer and leaned over the paper. "The font is wrong," he muttered. "See the serif on the numbers? The state standard is sans serif for commission expirations. This is a custom job, probably ordered from a rubber stamp site in Eastern Europe." He looked up at me. "We have seen this before. Ms. Kelly, not this specific name, but the pattern. They use a technique called title washing. They target homes with significant equity, usually owned by older folks or people who travel. They clear the title, encumber it with high-interest private debt, and then foreclose before the homeowner realizes the mortgage company didn't make a mistake." "Is it a local ring?" I asked. Bell shook his head. "The foot soldiers are local. The notary, the courier, the person who filed the papers, but the brains, the money, that is usually offshore or hidden behind 5 layers of Delaware LLCs." He tapped the picture of the man who had entered my house. "We need to ID him, and we need to find Silas Greer. I have an address for Greer." I said, "Or at least, where he claims to be." Bell made a note. "I will run him, but be warned. Ms. Kelly, these guys are slippery. They don't stay in one town long. If they feel heat, they vanish, and the money vanishes with them. I left the station feeling vindicated but terrified. It was real, it was organized, and my mother was in the middle of it. I tried to talk to Marlene that night. I went to her condo to check on her, hoping the confession in Dana's office had broken the fever. Instead, I found her pacing her kitchen, angrily scrubbing a pot that was already clean. "I don't understand why you had to drag the police into this," she snapped before I even closed the door. "Mom, they stole my house," I said, exhausted. "Of course I went to the police. Mr. Greer was trying to help," she shouted, slamming the pot into the rack. "Maybe the paperwork got messed up. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. You always jump to the worst conclusion. You are making me look like a criminal." I stared at her. The denial was back, thick and suffocating. It was easier for her to believe I was overreacting than to accept she had been conned. "He lied to you." "Mom," I said gently, "he isn't a wealth coach. He is a thief." "He listened to me," she cried, her voice cracking. "He was the only one who listened." "You are always so busy with your job and your logistics. You just throw money at me and think that fixes it." He actually sat down and looked at the bills. He told me I was smart. He told me I could leave a legacy. And then, just as quickly as the anger came, she crumpled. She grabbed the edge of the counter, her knuckles white. "Oh God. Violet," she whispered. "What if they arrest me? He said I was a co-conspirator. He said my name is on the loan. They aren't going to arrest you if you help us," I said, moving to hug her. But she stiffened, pulling away. "I can't talk about it," she said. "My head hurts. Just go. Please. Violet, just go." I left her there, trapped in her own shame. I knew I couldn't rely on her. She was too volatile, too terrified of her own shadow. I had to find Silas Greer myself. 2 days later, I got a hit, not from the police, but from Facebook. Marlene's friend Beatrice, the one who had introduced them, posted a flyer for a financial freedom seminar at the Grace Community Church in North Ashford. Guest speaker, Silas Greer. Topic: Unlocking Your God-Given Equity. It was happening tonight, 7 o'clock. I didn't call Dana. I didn't call Detective Bell. I put on a baseball cap and a nondescript hoodie, and I drove to the church. The parking lot was full. It was a mid-sized evangelical church, the kind with a coffee shop in the lobby and a worship band. I slipped into the sanctuary and sat in the back row. Near the exit, the lights dimmed, a projector screen lowered, upbeat music played, and then he walked out. Silas Greer. He looked exactly like the man in my mother's description, and yet nothing like a criminal. He was handsome, in his late 40s, wearing a suit that fit him perfectly. He had a warm, open face and a smile that seemed to embrace the whole room. "Welcome, friends," he said. His voice was rich, soothing. "I am here to tell you a secret. The banks don't want you to know it. The government doesn't want you to know it. But God wants you to be prosperous." He paced the stage. He talked about dead capital. He talked about how a house is just a box of money that you are forbidden to open. "Why should you struggle to pay bills when you are sitting on a gold mine?" he asked the crowd. "Why should your children wait until you are gone to enjoy their inheritance? We believe in living your legacy now." I looked around. The audience was mostly older people. Seniors, widows, people like my mother. They were nodding. They were taking notes. They were hungry for hope, and he was feeding it to them with a spoon made of poison. My blood ran cold. He was using the church. He was using their faith to lower their defenses. He spoke for an hour. At the end, he invited people to the front to schedule a consultation. I waited. I watched the line form. I watched him shake hands, touch shoulders, look deep into people's eyes. He was harvesting them. When the line thinned out, I stood up. I walked down the center aisle. He was packing up his laptop. He looked up and smiled at me. "Hi there," he said. "Did you enjoy the presentation?" "I am Violet Kelly," I said. His smile didn't falter, not even for a microsecond. "Violet," he said, as if greeting an old friend. "Marlene's daughter," It is so good to finally meet you. Your mother speaks the world of you. You forged my signature, I said. My voice was shaking, but I kept it loud enough for the few people lingering nearby to hear. You stole my house, he chuckled. A soft, indulgent sound. He stepped off the stage and moved closer to me, lowering his voice. Violet, Violet, he said, that is a very strong accusation. We have a signed agreement. Your mother was very clear that she had your full authorization. My mother is terrified of you. I hissed. You tricked her. You put a fake loan on my property. I facilitated a liquidity event, he corrected smoothly. And frankly, sweetheart, you should be thanking me. Your mother was drowning. We threw her a lifeline. If there is a dispute about the terms, that is a family matter. He was gaslighting me. To my face, I am going to the police. I said, I have the fake notary stamp. I have the tracing evidence. He sighed, checking his watch. Police reports are so messy, he said, and they take so long. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking on that lease, isn't it? Default comes at you fast. He leaned in, his cologne smelling of sandalwood and arrogance. You authorized everything. Violet, your signature is on the page. Your ID is on file. If you want to claim your mother committed fraud, go ahead. Send her to prison. I am just a consultant. He winked. Then he turned and walked out the side door. I started to follow him, but a large man in a church security polo shirt stepped in my path. Ma'am, the event is over, he said. By the time I got to the parking lot, Silas Greer was gone. I sat in my car and screamed. I screamed until my throat was raw. He was untouchable. He knew exactly how to play the game. He held my mother as a human shield. I called Detective Bell the next morning. You approached him? Bell asked, his voice sharp. I told you not to escalate. He was right there. I said, selling the same scam to 50 other people. I couldn't just watch. Did he confess? Bell asked. No. He claimed I authorized it. He said my mother is the one on the hook. That is his play. Bell said, plausible deniability. He acts as the advisor. The victim signs the papers. If the law comes knocking, he points at the victim and says, she tricked me too. So how do we stop him? We need to catch him in the act of the forgery. Bell said, or moving the money, we are tracking the accounts. But it is a maze. And Violet? Yeah? Be careful. These guys are not violent usually. But when 8 figures of revenue are at stake, people get desperate. If you see anything suspicious at your house, you call me. Do not engage. Suspicious was an understatement. 2 days later, I got an alert from the title monitoring service Dana had signed me up for. New appointment scheduled. Mobile notary service. Location, 124 Oak Street. Date, October 25th. Time, 6 p.m. Client, Aldervale Capital. They were coming back. I called Dana. What is this? I asked. Why are they sending a notary? They are probably trying to get you to sign a deed in lieu of foreclosure, she said, or a ratification document. They know you are fighting. They want to trick you into signing something that validates the fraud retroactively. They are sending someone to my house? Yes, a mobile notary, probably a gig worker who knows nothing about the scam. They just get an order on an app. I had an idea, a dangerous one. Let them come, I said. Violet? No, Dana said. I am not going to sign anything. I said, but I want to see who shows up. I want to see the paperwork. If they are bold enough to come to my door, I am going to meet them. I called Tessa. I need you. I said, bring your phone. And bring that scary look you give employees when they try to expense strip club visits. Tessa arrived at 5:30. We set up my phone on the entryway table, hidden behind a vase but angled to capture the door. Tessa stood in the kitchen, just out of sight, holding her own phone ready to record audio. At 6 o'clock sharp, a silver sedan pulled up. A woman got out. She looked normal, middle-aged, wearing slacks and a blazer. She carried a clipboard. She rang the bell. I opened the door. Hi, are you Violet Kelly? She asked. I am. I said, great, I am Linda. I am the notary for your signing today. I have some documents from Aldervale Capital regarding your property modification. Come in, I said. She stepped into the hallway. We can do this right here, she said, trying to hand me the clipboard. It is just a few signatures, basically confirming that you received the notice of default and are waiving your right to a hearing in exchange for an extension. Waiving my right to a hearing. They were trying to strip me of my legal defense. I took the clipboard. I looked at the document. It was titled, Forbearance and Ratification Agreement. Linda, I said, looking up at her. Who hired you? Oh, I just get the orders through the portal, she said breezily. It came from a signing service called QuickSign. Can I see your ID? I asked. She looked confused. Usually I ask for your ID. She laughed. I want to know who is in my house, I said, my voice hard. She blinked. Sensing the shift in the atmosphere, she reached into her purse and pulled out a notary badge. Okay, I said. Linda, do you know that the loan this document refers to is fraudulent? What? She said, stepping back. Do you know that the previous notary on this file, Beverly Miller, does not exist? I asked, stepping forward. Do you know that you are asking me to sign a document that waives my rights to a house that was stolen from me? I don't know anything about that, she stammered. I am just the notary. Who gave you the packet? I demanded. Where did it come from? I downloaded it, she said, clutching her purse. Look, if you don't want to sign, mark it as refused. I am leaving. She tried to grab the clipboard back. Tessa stepped out of the kitchen, holding her phone up. We are recording this interaction, Tessa announced, her voice booming. We have your name and your badge number. If you are part of this ring, the police are on their way. I am not part of anything, Linda shouted. She snatched the clipboard from my hand. Tearing the top page, I am leaving. She turned and ran out the door. She practically dove into her car. As she peeled away, something fluttered out of her car door. Trash she had knocked over in her panic. I ran out to the driveway. It was a crumpled backing from a shipping label, a FedEx label. I picked it up. It wasn't the label for the packet she had just tried to get me to sign. It was an old label, stuck to the bottom of her shoe or her floor mat. Sender, QuickSign Hub. Receiver, North Pine Logistics. Address, 440 Industrial Way, Reno, Nevada. Reno. Bell had said the money moves offshore or through Delaware, but the paperwork? The physical paperwork had to go somewhere to be processed. Reno was the hub. I walked back inside, holding the scrap of paper like a diamond. Did we get it? Tessa asked, her heart racing. We got something. I said. I called Bell immediately and gave him the address in Reno. That is actionable, he said, his tone shifting from cautious to eager. If they have a processing center in Nevada, I can get the FBI involved. Interstate wire fraud. That bridges the jurisdiction gap. I felt a surge of adrenaline. We were fighting back, but the victory was short-lived. Later that night, I went through the packet Linda had left behind. She had snatched the clipboard, but dropped the duplicate copy of the ratification agreement on the floor in the scuffle. I looked at the exhibits attached to the back. Exhibit A, promissory note. Exhibit B, deed of trust. Exhibit C, identity verification. I turned to Exhibit C. It was a photocopy of my driver's license, my current one, the one I kept in my wallet. The picture was clear. The text was legible. How? I asked the empty room. How did they get this? I had my license with me in Denver. I had it with me every day. I thought back to the timeline. September 14th. Marlene. I called her. I didn't even say hello. Mom, I said, did you take a picture of my driver's license? There was silence on the line. Heavy, guilty silence. Mom? He said he needed it for the file, she burst out. He said he couldn't process the surprise without proof of identity. When? I asked. When did you take it? The Sunday before you left for Denver. She sobbed. We were at lunch. You went to the restroom. You left your purse on the table. I felt the blood drain from my face. You went through my purse? He texted me. He said, Quick, get a shot of the ID while she is gone. I thought I was helping. I thought I was being a good agent for the trust. I hung up. I dropped the phone on the couch. My mother had gone through my purse. She had photographed my ID at a restaurant while I was in the bathroom. Unaware. She had sent it to a stranger. That was how they did it. That was how the notary stamp looked real. That was how the identity verification passed the bank's checks. They had my signature from the folder on the counter. They had my ID from my mother's phone. They had built a perfect digital clone of me, using the person I trusted most in the world as the architect. I looked at the paid in full letter still pinned to my wall. It mocked me. I wasn't just fighting a scammer. I was fighting the ghost of my own family, and the ghost was winning. But I had Reno, and I had a detective who finally smelled blood. I picked up the phone again, not to call Marlene. I was done calling Marlene. I called Dana. We have the hub, I said. And I know how they verified the ID. We are going to burn them down. Dana, even if I have to burn my relationship with my mother to ash to do it. Dana didn't ask if I was sure. She just said, "Get me that address." I looked out the window at the dark street. The sign on my lawn still said nothing. But in my mind, I was planting a new one. Under siege, but armed. The war wasn't over. The Honorable Judge Vance sat behind a bench that seemed designed to intimidate anyone who dared to question the sanctity of a contract. The courtroom in the Ashford Glen Superior Court was freezing, a deliberate architectural choice to keep tempers low. But my blood was boiling hot. Dana Sloan stood at the plaintiff's table, looking small but sharp in her charcoal suit. She was arguing for a preliminary injunction, a court order to freeze the title of my home and halt any eviction or foreclosure proceedings initiated by the Kestrel Ridge Family Trust or Aldervale Capital. "Your Honor," Dana said, her voice projecting clearly without a microphone, "the plaintiff asserts that the instruments recorded against her property are the product of forgery and fraud. We have submitted sworn affidavits, a forensic handwriting analysis, and evidence of a non-existent notary. To allow these entities to proceed with eviction based on fruit of the poisonous tree would be a miscarriage of justice." The attorney for the defense, a man named Mr. Thorne, who had been hired by the Trust's LLC merely to delay us, stood up. He looked bored. "Your Honor?" "Mr." Thorne drawled, "this is a case of buyer's remorse." The plaintiff's mother, acting with power of attorney, entered into a legitimate equity release program. Now the daughter wants to renege. This is a family dispute, not a fraud case. Judge Vance peered over his glasses at me. I tried to look like a victim, not a co-conspirator. I sat with my hands folded, squeezing my fingers until they turned white. "I am granting the temporary injunction." Judge Vance ruled, his gavel hovering. "The status quo of the property will be preserved for 60 days. No eviction, no foreclosure." I let out a breath I had been holding for 20 minutes. However, the judge continued, pointing the gavel handle at me. "Ms. Kelly, you need to understand something. A freeze is not a finding of fact. You have alleged forgery. That is a criminal accusation. Paperwork alone does not prove who forged a signature, only that the signature is disputed. If you cannot produce evidence linking these specific defendants to the act of forgery within 60 days, I will lift this order, and you will lose your house." The gavel banged down. It sounded like a gunshot. We walked out into the corridor. The relief of the win was tempered by the 60-day countdown clock ticking in my ear. "We bought time," Dana said, snapping her briefcase shut. "Now we have to use it." I drove straight from the courthouse to the County Financial Crimes Unit. Detective Rourke Bell was waiting for me. His office was becoming a second home, a place of stale coffee and grim revelations. He looked more tired than usual. He had a map of the United States on his wall, with red pins stuck in various cities. "I ran the corporate structure for Everwell Prosperity Institute," Bell said, skipping the pleasantries. "It is a ghost ship. Violet," he pointed to a pin in Delaware. "Everwell is owned by a holding company called Red River Assets, LLC. Red River is registered to a registered agent in Dover who manages 5,000 other companies." He pointed to a pin in Wyoming. "Red River is owned by Blue Sky Capital, a Wyoming trust. Wyoming doesn't require the disclosure of beneficiaries. It is a black box. And the Reno address? I asked. The FedEx hub? He nodded. That gave us a little more. The account that pays for the shipping labels is linked to a prepaid business debit card. We traced the funding source for the card. It is being loaded with cryptocurrency transfers. Crypto, I said, feeling the hope drain out of me. So they are untraceable. Not untraceable, Bell corrected, just hard. But we did find a pattern. We ran the names of the officers listed on the fake filings. John Smith, Jane Doe, but also a few recurring aliases. We found complaints filed in Ohio, Arizona, and Florida. Same MO, a mortgage payoff, followed by a surprise leaseback, followed by a foreclosure. So it is a ring. I said, it is an industry, Bell said, and they are moving fast. They don't hold the properties. They strip the equity and dump the title. The fact that they sent a mobile notary to your house means they are getting impatient. They want to close the file on you. He handed me a manila envelope. This came back from the state crime lab. He said, the handwriting analysis. I opened it. It was a technical report, full of jargon about pen lifts and tremor indicators. I skipped to the conclusion at the bottom. Conclusion. The question signatures on the power of attorney and the promissory note exhibit a high probability of simulation. The fluid dynamics suggest a copying process rather than a natural execution. It proves I didn't sign it. I said, it proves someone copied your signature. Bell said, but as the judge said, it doesn't prove who held the pen. I knew who held the pen, or at least, who set the paper on the table. I went home. I needed to decompress, to think. But when I unlocked my phone, the war had followed me there. I opened Facebook. I don't know why. Maybe I was looking for a distraction. Instead, I found a grenade. My mother had posted an update. It was a picture of her looking sad, staring out a window, a staged photo, likely taken with a timer. The caption read, "It breaks a mother's heart when she sacrifices everything to secure a legacy for her family, only to be met with suspicion and legal threats. You try to help your children, you try to break the chains of debt, and they treat you like a villain. Ungrateful children are sharper than a serpent's tooth. Pray for my peace." The comments were already piling up. "Oh, Marlene, I am so sorry. Kids these days have no respect. Stay strong. Honey, you did your best." Then the text messages started. My Aunt Sarah. "Violet, I just saw your mom's post. Why are you attacking her? She's a widow." My cousin Mike. "Hey, Vi. Heard you called the cops on Aunt Marlene? Not cool. Keep family business in the family." I sat on my couch, the phone shaking in my hand. She was controlling the narrative. Silas Greer had coached her well. Isolate the victim. If I fought back, I looked like a monster attacking my own mother. If I stayed silent, I let her lie stand. I didn't reply to the comments. I didn't text my aunt back. I chose restraint, not because I was noble, but because I needed evidence more than I needed validation. I drove to Shady Creek. I didn't call first. I walked up to her door and turned on the voice recorder app on my phone. I slipped it into the front pocket of my hoodie. I knocked. Marlene opened the door. She looked surprised, then defensive. She crossed her arms. "I saw your post." "Mom," I said quietly. She lifted her chin. "It is a free country. Violet, I have a right to my feelings." "You have a right to your feelings," I said, stepping inside before she could block me. "But you don't have a right to my house. I am not taking your house," she cried, following me into the kitchen. "I told you. The trust is protecting it." "Protecting it from who?" I asked, leaning against the counter. "From me? From the banks," she shouted. "From the interest rates." Silas explained it. "We put the house in the trust, and the trust pays you a dividend." "Mom," I said, keeping my voice level, fighting every instinct to scream. "I received an eviction notice and a foreclosure notice. There is no dividend. There is only a demand for money I don't have." She faltered. She looked at the floor. "That must be a mistake," she mumbled. "Silas said there would be a transition period." I walked closer to her. "Mom, look at me. Did you sign my name? She wouldn't meet my eyes. He told me to, she burst out. That was it. The admission. He told you to sign my name? I asked. He said you had already agreed, she sobbed, throwing her hands up. He told me he spoke to you on the phone. He said, Violet is on board. She just can't get away from work to sign the papers, so she authorized you to sign as her proxy. I never spoke to him. Mom, you know I never spoke to him. I didn't know, she wailed. He sounded so sure. He had your ID. He knew your social security number. I thought you were just being private about it. I signed it because I thought I was finishing what you started. And the witness signature? On the loan? He said it was a formality. He said, just witness that the trust is active. I didn't know it was a loan against the house. I let the silence hang there. The recorder in my pocket was capturing every wet sniffle, every desperate excuse. So you admit it, I said softly. You signed my name because Silas Greer told you to. Yes, she screamed. Yes, I signed it. Are you happy? I was trying to help you. I wasn't happy. I was devastated. My mother was a fool. But she wasn't the mastermind. She was a tool, a pen that Silas Greer had picked up and used to sign away my life. I have to go, I said. I turned and walked out. Violet, she called after me. Violet, don't leave me like this. I didn't look back. I had the recording. It was a knife in my heart, but it was a shield for my home. I went straight to Dana's office the next morning. I played the recording for her. Dana listened, her face impassive. When it finished, she nodded. This is good, she said. It establishes that she acted under duress and deception. It supports the theory of a larger conspiracy. It moves the target off your mother and onto Greer. She pulled out a file. I have something else. She said, I had my paralegal look into the paid in full letter you received, the original hook. She laid the letter on the desk. Look at the logo. She said, Bramblestone uses a specific Pantone shade of green. This is 2 shades darker. And the font? It is Arial. Bramblestone uses a proprietary font called Stone Sans. I looked at the letter. It had looked so real. And the phone number. Dana said, the customer service number you called? It doesn't belong to Bramblestone. It belongs to a VoIP service, Voice over IP. It forwards to a call center in the Philippines that handles overflow for hundreds of companies. So when I called, I asked, you weren't talking to Bramblestone. She said, you were talking to a hired operator reading a script provided by the scammers. They set up a fake customer service line just to confirm the fake payoff. I felt sick. The level of detail was terrifying. It is psychological warfare. Violet, Dana said, think about the sequence. First, the relief, the paid in full letter. It makes you drop your guard. It makes you happy. Then, the confusion, the weird transactions. Then, the panic, the eviction notice, the lawsuit. They whipsaw you between emotions so you can't think straight. They want you disoriented, because a disoriented person makes mistakes. I am not disoriented anymore. I said, I am angry. Good, Dana said, because Detective Bell called. He wants to use that anger. I met Bell an hour later. He had a plan. They are getting desperate, Bell said. The mobile notary failed. The eviction is stalled by the court order. They are cash poor on this deal. They spent money to pay off your mortgage. And they haven't been able to liquidate the asset yet. They are in the red. So what do? I asked. They try to cut their losses, he said. They will try to extort you. If they can't steal the house, they will settle for stealing your cash. He handed me a piece of paper with an email address on it. legal@aldervale, cap.com. I want you to email them, Bell said. I want you to play the broken victim. Tell them the lawsuit is destroying you. Tell them you want it to stop. Ask them what it takes to make them go away. I sat at Bell's computer. My fingers hovered over the keys. I channeled every ounce of fear and exhaustion I had felt over the last 2 weeks. Subject: settlement to whom it may concern. I can't do this anymore. The lawyers are costing me everything. My mother is falling apart. I just want my life back. If I pay off the bridge loan, will you release the lien? I don't have the full amount, but I can borrow from family. Please, just tell me what you want to walk away. Violet. We waited. 10 minutes. 20. The reply pinged. Ms. Kelly. Aldervale prefers amicable resolutions. We are willing to accept a partial settlement of $50,000 to release the deed of trust and cancel the lease agreement. This offer is valid for 24 hours. Payment must be made via cashier's check, in person. $50,000. I said. They are trying to squeeze the last drop out of the lemon. Belle said grimly. He typed a reply for me. I can get the money. Where do I meet you? The response came back with coordinates. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. The Roasted Bean Coffee Shop, Larkhaven City. Come alone. Bring the check. The Roasted Bean was a hipster spot downtown. Exposed brick and overpriced lattes. It was public. It felt safe. The next morning, I sat at a small table in the back corner. I had a backpack on the floor. Inside was an envelope stuffed with blank paper. Not a check. Detective Bell was outside in an unmarked van. 2 plainclothes officers were inside the shop. A woman on a laptop near the door, and a man reading a newspaper at the counter. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I tried to look natural. I sipped my cold coffee. 10 o'clock came and went. 10:10. The door opened. It wasn't Silas Greer. It was a younger man, maybe 30. He wore a leather jacket and jeans. He looked like a guy who fixed motorcycles, not financial instruments. He scanned the room. His eyes landed on me. He checked his phone, probably looking at the photo of my ID they had on file. He walked over. He didn't sit down. Violet? He asked. Yes, I said. My voice was tight. You have the package? He asked. I have it. I said, patting the backpack. Are you with Aldervale? I am just a courier. He said, hand it over. I need a receipt. I said, I need proof that this clears the debt. He scowled. He looked nervous. His eyes darted around the room. Give me the bag, he said, louder this time. Then you get your receipt. He reached for the backpack. At the counter, the officer with the newspaper folded it. The movement was subtle, but the man in the leather jacket saw it. He saw the wire in the officer's ear. Cop! He yelled. The shop exploded into chaos. The man kicked my chair, sending me sprawling backward. He bolted for the side door. Police! Stop! The officer shouted. Drawing his weapon, patrons screamed and dove under tables. The man slammed into the emergency exit bar. The door flew open. He sprinted into the alley. The officers gave chase. I scrambled up from the floor, my knees shaking. I looked down. In the scuffle, when he had kicked the chair, he had dropped a folder he was carrying under his arm. It had slid under the next table. I reached for it. My hand was trembling so bad I could barely grasp the cardboard. I opened it. It wasn't a receipt. It was a template. Master Asset Transfer Agreement. Trust name. Insert trust name here. Borrower. Insert victim name here. Behind it was a spreadsheet, a ledger. I ran my finger down the list. Row 14. Kelly, Violet, status, active, yield, potential. Row 15. Henderson, Mark, status, foreclosed, yield, $120,000. Row 16. Ramirez, Elena, status, in progress, yield, TBD. There were dozens of names, dozens of houses, and in the column marked recruiter, next to my name. It didn't say Silas Greer. It said, Agent 4, Marlene K. I stared at the paper. My mother was listed as an agent, not a victim. An agent. Bell came back in, breathing hard. He hopped a fence. Bell said, holstering his gun, patrol cars are setting up a perimeter. We will get him. I held up the folder. You need to see this, I whispered. Bell took the folder. He looked at the list. He looked at me. This is the whole operation, he said quietly. He flipped to the back of the folder. There was a stack of blank signature pages. But they weren't just blank. They were pre-signed by the lenders, Silas Greer, Arthur P. Vance, Marcus Thorne. The signatures were wet ink, blue ballpoint. "These are originals," Bell said. "He carries a mobile office." He looked at me. "We didn't get the guy," Bell said, "but we got the playbook, and we got the list of victims." I looked at the row with my name again. Agent 4. I knew my mother wasn't really an agent. I knew she was a dupe, but to them, to Silas Greer and his machine, she was just a free employee, a useful idiot they didn't even have to pay. I felt a cold resolve settle over me. The fear was gone. The confusion was gone. I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I was fighting for Elena Ramirez. I was fighting for Mark Henderson. I looked at Bell. "What do we do now?" I asked. Bell closed the folder. "Now," he said, "now we stop playing defense. We use this list. We find the other victims. And we build an army." I walked out of the coffee shop into the bright sunlight of Larkhaven. The city looked the same, but it felt different. It was a battlefield. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Marlene. "Did it work? Did you pay them? Is it over?" I looked at the screen. I didn't reply. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. The folder that the courier dropped in his panic was not just a collection of papers. It was the anatomy of a monster. I sat in Detective Bell's office, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, while he and Dana dissected the contents. The ledger was a simple spreadsheet, likely printed from a cloud drive just hours before the meeting. It contained rows of addresses, names, and loan amounts. But it was the column on the far right that made the air leave the room. Recruiter, next to my name, as I had seen, was the code Agent 4. But next to the name of a victim in the neighboring county, a 70-year-old widow named Mrs. Higgins, was a name I knew. Recruiter, Beatrice C. Beatrice, my mother's friend from church. The woman who baked casseroles for the sick and organized the holiday bazaar. She wasn't just a friend. She was a headhunter. "It spreads like a virus," Bell said, tracing the line with his finger. "They don't just target victims. They recruit lieutenants within the community. They find someone trusted, someone with influence, a church elder, a bingo organizer, a HOA president, and they sell them the financial freedom lie first. Then, they incentivize them to bring in their friends." "So Beatrice got a cut?" I asked. Feeling a wave of nausea, Bell nodded. "Referral fees, commission, or maybe just forgiveness on her own debt. It is a pyramid scheme built on stolen equity." Dana looked up from the documents. "This is powerful," she said, "but it is still just a piece of paper dropped by an unidentified suspect. In civil court, we need to link this directly to the instruments recorded against your house. We need to prove that the Kestrel Ridge Family Trust and Aldervale Capital are not legitimate lenders, but shell entities in this criminal enterprise. We have the hearing on Tuesday." I said, "Yes," Dana said, "and we are going for the throat. I am filing a motion to quiet title. We are asking the judge to void the deed of trust, the assignment of rents, and the power of attorney ab initio. From the beginning, we are arguing they never legally existed because they were born of fraud." The day of the hearing arrived with a sky the color of bruised slate. I wore my darkest suit. I pulled my hair back tight. I wanted to look like a fortress. The courtroom was fuller than I expected. Detective Bell was there in the back row, watching, but my eyes went immediately to the third row. Marlene was there. She was sitting alone, clutching her purse. She wore a gray dress that seemed too big for her, as if she had shrunk in the wash. She didn't look at me. She stared at the back of the bench in front of her. Dana squeezed my arm. "Focus," she whispered. We took our seats at the plaintiff's table. The defense table was occupied by Mr. Thorne, the attorney I had seen at the injunction hearing, but today he was joined by another lawyer, a sleek, sharp-eyed woman who looked like she cost $500 an hour. "All rise." Judge Vance swept in. He looked tired. He sat down and opened the file. "We are here on the matter of Kelly versus Kestrel Ridge Family Trust and related entities," he said. "Motion to quiet title and declaratory relief." Dana stood up. "Your Honor," she began. her voice steady and resonant. This case is not about a contract dispute. It is about the systematic theft of a home using the most intimate of weapons, a mother's trust. We will show that the defendants operate a predatory ring that manufactures consent through forgery and deceit. The defense attorney, the woman, stood up. Her name was Ms. Sterling. "Your Honor," she said, her tone dripping with condescension, "this is a tragedy, but it is a self-inflicted one. Ms. Kelly's mother, acting with full legal authority, entered into a complex financial arrangement to save the family from insolvency, now that the bill has come due. The daughter is crying fraud to escape her contractual obligations. It is buyer's remorse, plain and simple." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. "Self-inflicted. Call your first witness." The judge said. I was the first witness. I walked to the stand. I placed my hand on the Bible. I swore to tell the truth. Dana guided me through the timeline. "Violet, tell the court what happened on October 15th, she said. "I received a letter from Bramblestone Mortgage stating my loan was paid in full." I said, "I did not send the payment. I did not authorize it." "And what did you discover when you investigated?" "I discovered a power of attorney document recorded on September 15th. It bore a signature that looked like mine, but I did not write it." "How do you know?" Dana asked. "Because on September 15th, I was in Denver, Colorado. For work, I submitted my flight records, my hotel receipts, my conference badge, and the notary?" Dana asked. "Beverly J. Miller?" I said, "She does not exist in the state registry. Her stamp is a counterfeit. Ms. Sterling cross-examined me. She didn't attack the facts. She attacked my character. "Ms. Kelly," she said, leaning on the podium, "you say you were in Denver, but isn't it true you speak to your mother almost every day?" "Yes," I said. "And isn't it true that you were aware of her financial struggles?" "I knew she had some debt." I said, "I didn't know the extent." "So it is possible," she said, smiling thinly, "that you verbally authorized your mother to handle things while you were away, and now you are regretting the specific method she chose?" "No," I said firmly, "I never authorized her to sell my house." "But you gave her a key." "Ms. Sterling said, "You let her into your home. You trusted her. I trusted her to water my plants," I said, my voice shaking slightly, not to liquidate my assets. "Ms. Sterling sat down, looking satisfied. She had planted the seed. Maybe the daughter is lying to cover for the mom. Then came the moment I had been dreading. "The plaintiff calls Marlene Kelly," Dana announced. Marlene stood up. She wobbled, for a second. I thought she was going to faint. A bailiff took her elbow and guided her to the stand. She sat down. She looked tiny in the witness chair. The microphone was too high for her. She had to stretch her neck like a scared bird. "State your name for the record." The clerk said, "Marlene Kelly." She whispered. Dana approached the stand. She didn't treat Marlene like a hostile witness. She treated her like a bomb that needed to be diffused. "Mrs. Kelly," Dana said gently, "I want to show you a document. Exhibit B. The limited power of attorney." Marlene looked at the paper. Her hands were trembling so hard the paper rattled against the wood. "Do you recognize this document?" Dana asked. "Yes," Marlene whispered. "Did your daughter, Violet Kelly, sign this document in your presence?" Marlene looked at me. Her eyes were wet, red-rimmed pools of misery. She looked at Ms. Sterling, who was staring at her with cold, shark-like intensity. "No," Marlene said. "Who signed it?" Dana asked. "I don't know who signed it," Marlene said. "Mr. Greer brought it to me. It was already signed." "And what did Mr. Greer tell you about that signature?" "He told me Violet had signed it electronically. He said she had approved everything." Dana pulled out another document. "Exhibit C, the photocopy of my driver's license. Mrs. Kelly, how did the defendants obtain this image of Violet's ID?" Marlene closed her eyes. A tear leaked out and tracked through her powder. "I took it," she said. Her voice was barely audible. "I'm sorry," the judge said. "You have to speak up. I took it," she cried out, her voice breaking. "I took the picture." When? Dana asked. At lunch. Before she went to Denver. Silas texted me. He said he needed it to verify the file. He said it was for her own protection. And did Violet know you took it? No. She was in the ladies' room. A murmur went through the courtroom. This was it. The betrayal laid bare. Dana paused. She let the silence hang in the air. Heavy and suffocating. One last question. Mrs. Kelly, on the day the bridge loan was signed, the loan for $150,000, did you witness that document? Yes. Marlene whispered. Did you receive any of the proceeds from that loan? Ms. Sterling stood up. Objection. Relevance? Goes to motive. Your Honor. Dana said. Overruled. Answer the question. Marlene looked down at her lap. He gave me $5,000, she said. For my credit cards. $5,000. The price of a daughter. Thank you, Dana said. No further questions. Marlene practically ran off the stand. She didn't go back to her seat. She walked straight out of the courtroom. Pushing through the heavy double doors, the closing arguments were short. Ms. Sterling argued that Marlene was the fraudster, that the lenders were innocent victims of a mother's deceit. Dana argued that the lenders were the architects, and Marlene was just the tool. Judge Vance retired to his chambers. We waited for an hour. When he returned, he didn't look at the lawyers. He looked at me. The court finds that the instruments recorded against the property at 124 Oak Street are void. He said, the evidence is clear that the plaintiff did not sign the power of attorney and that the notarization was fraudulent. I am issuing an order to quiet title in favor of Violet Kelly. The deed of trust held by Alder Vale Capital is struck from the record. I slumped forward, my forehead touching the cool wood of the table. I had won. But, the judge continued, while I am voiding the liens, I must make something clear. This court's ruling is limited to the title of the property. The question of criminal liability, of who orchestrated this scheme, is a matter for the district attorney and Mrs. Kelly. He paused. Your mother admitted to facilitating this fraud under oath. He said, while I am not issuing a bench warrant today, her testimony is now a matter of public record. She has exposed herself to significant legal peril. He banged the gavel. Case closed. We walked out of the courthouse into the blinding afternoon sun. The air tasted sweet, but my stomach was in knots. Dana was shaking hands with Detective Bell. We got the title back. Dana said, that is the win. But we didn't get them. Bell said, Ms. Sterling will appeal, or she will disappear, and the LLCs will dissolve by tomorrow morning. I looked towards the parking lot. I saw a figure leaning against a black sedan. It was Silas Greer. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was standing there, checking his phone, looking like he was waiting for an Uber. I stopped. The rage that had been simmering in my gut for weeks boiled over. I walked toward him. Violet, don't, Dana called out. I kept walking. Silas looked up. He smiled. It was that same warm, pastoral smile he had used in the church. Congratulations, Violet, he said. I heard you got a favorable ruling. You are a monster. I said, I am a businessman. He said, shrugging. Markets have risks. Sometimes a deal doesn't close. You destroyed my mother. I said, you made her a criminal. Your mother is a grown woman, Silas said, his voice dropping an octave, losing its warmth. She made choices. She wanted a lifestyle she couldn't afford. She wanted to be the hero. I just gave her the costume. You are going to jail, I said. Detective Bell has the ledger. He knows about the crypto. He knows about Reno. Silas laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. Reno is a mail drop. Violet, the ledger is just a list of leads. And me? I am just a consultant. I never signed anything. Your mother signed everything. He opened the car door. You kept your house. For now, he said, looking at me over the roof of the car. But do you know the funny thing about debt? It doesn't disappear just because a judge bangs a gavel. What does that mean? I asked. Ask your mother about the personal notes. He said, ask her about the promissory notes she signed directly to the investors to cover the gap. She didn't just borrow against the house. Sweetheart, She borrowed against her future. He got in the car. The engine purred to life. He drove away, merging into the traffic of Larkhaven as if he were just another commuter. I stood there, watching him go. Violet? I turned. Marlene was standing near the courthouse steps. She had been waiting. She had seen him. Mom, I said. She looked broken. Her face was a mask of running mascara and terror. What did he mean? I asked, walking over to her. What personal notes? Marlene started to cry again. He said the equity release took time. She sobbed. So he had me sign some bridge notes, personal guarantees. How much? Mom? I asked. I don't know. She wailed. He kept rolling it over. He said it was just paperwork. He said the trust would cover it. How much? I screamed. 80,000, she whispered. Maybe 100. I don't know. I stared at her. We had saved the house, but Silas Greer had tied an anchor around her neck before he left. He had legally obligated her to pay back the money he had stolen. She was ruined. She would be paying them for the rest of her life. Detective Bell walked up. He saw Marlene crying. He saw my face. He is gone, I said. For now, Bell said. He looked at Marlene. Mrs. Kelly, he said, you need to come to the station. We need to go over those personal notes. If they were signed under fraud, we might be able to fight them. But you have to tell us everything. No more secrets. Marlene nodded, looking like a child who had been scolded. I watched them walk toward Bell's car. My mother, the agent, and the detective. I didn't go with them. I couldn't. I drove home. The drive was automatic. I didn't remember the turns. I just ended up in my driveway. The house looked the same. The porch needed painting. The hydrangeas were dead, but it was mine. The quiet title order was electronic, but I could feel the weight of it. The lien was gone. I walked to the mailbox. It was pried open. The metal tab was bent back. The lock was busted. My heart stopped. I reached inside. There was a single sheet of paper. It wasn't a letter from Bramblestone. It wasn't a bill. It was a notice of assignment. Dear resident, please be advised that the rights to the judgment debt of Marlene Kelly have been assigned to Omega Asset Recovery, LLC. Pursuant to the personal guarantee executed by Marlene Kelly, holding a beneficial interest in the family estate, we are placing a lien on all recoverable assets. Welcome to Omega. I stared at the paper. They weren't attacking the title anymore. They were attacking the mother, and through her. They were coming for me again, because in their eyes, the family estate was still fair game. Silas Greer hadn't lost. He had just pivoted. I crumpled the paper in my fist. I looked at the doorbell camera. I looked at the street. They thought this was the end. They thought I would crumble. I walked into the house. I didn't lock the door. I went to the kitchen and pulled out the folder, the one with the ledger. I turned to the page with the list of victims. Agent 4. I crossed it out. I picked up a red marker. I wrote a new header at the top of the page. The Resistance. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a witness, and I had a list of 50 other people who had lost everything. I picked up the phone. I dialed the number for row 15. Mark Henderson. It rang twice. Hello? A man's voice answered. He sounded tired. Beaten. Mr. Henderson. I said, my name is Violet Kelly. Silas Greer stole my house, too. But I got it back. There was a silence on the line. You got it back? He asked. How? I'm going to show you, I said, and then, we are going to get yours back. I looked at the paid in full letter on the wall. I ripped it down. I am not paid in full. I whispered to the empty room. I am just getting started. Thank you for listening to Violet's story. This has been a journey into the terrifying reality of paper terrorism, where the weapon isn't a gun, but a signature. I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Have you ever had a brush with identity theft or a scam that felt too close to home? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories about people fighting back against the systems that try to crush them, please subscribe to Revenge Stories. We are building a community here, just like Violet is building hers. Stay safe, watch your paperwork, and trust your gut. Goodbye for now.